So along with that, how about a discussion here on Veterans Park clock?
Okay,
Peter, you provided us with something there.
I did. So this one is about the clock, and thanks for looking at this. So I sent you a letter addressed to Jerry because he's technically the liaison to the Parks and Rec Committee. On the front page, it just shows you some of the conditions of the existing clock, the picture of the existing stone monument down there with the plaque on it. And it also shows you some of the disrepair. Where you can see there's obviously paint chipping off. Some of it's a little bit worse when you get real close to it than I thought it was. It really, I mean, we're talking about an outside element that has been there for almost 20 years. So it's showing its age, but it's done a pretty good job for 20 years, except that it hasn't kept time very well for the last 15. Yeah. Which is one of the things we'd like to remedy.
You can't spell, so.
I can't? Oh, yeah, on the clock, yeah. That's one of the reasons why I suggested in there that maybe we don't have the village and the actual face of the clock to keep that from happening again, but just a little gun shy. But there's a lot of designs. I showed them on the last page. So trying to give you a sense of what the clock would look like. We'd have to put in some pretty specific quotes on, that's why I kind of need your feedback before we do that on what you'd like to see at a new clock. But in general, when I looked up the in general average cost of a pedestal clock like this, post clock they actually call them, that would be somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000 depending upon the elements of the clock. The more complex it is, it's going to be more. So there are a lot. The reason I gave you the sites there in the middle on the second page is so I would just recommend if you have a moment to go on and take a look at them yourself, because you can get a really good idea of what these clocks look like. The clock I believe we have now, it looks like, from everything Jake sent me, and it does look like the model that comes from the Verdun company. And you don't think so?
No, it's Fancy Street Clock Company that's no longer.
A fancy street clock, all right. It's very similar to a Verdun clock, though, the Verdun clocks. So so then you could also look there, because they have a number of, and they're a very reputable company. The other ones are also good. There's nothing wrong with them, and they're all possible vendors for this particular project. So there's four listed there, So a couple of quick things. One, the concrete base in the clock. I'm not a concrete base expert, but it looks okay from my amateur eyes. I would recommend that maybe we keep the bottom, some kind of pattern on the bottom. There's an attractive bottom right now to it, right above the concrete base. I believe the column itself is around 7 feet tall. That's again an estimate from the ground, but I did kind of, I hope I didn't look weird going out there with a yardstick and trying to measure upwards in the air. But it looked to be up 7 feet tall, and then the clock element on the top. You could read the one right now is basically a bluish gray. It might have been gray when it was done. It might have been a little bit bluer. I'm not sure. I don't have any historical pictures of it when it was first put in, but you could choose to keep that color, make it black, or even make it a dark green, something like that, whatever you like. I know Daryl doesn't like green that much, but that's another possibility.
It's our village color.
So the actual village clock could be, you could also put a flourish design on the clock itself. I did notice though, and asked a couple of people, people don't, they tend to look at the time, they don't tend to look at the clock as a whole, so I don't know if you want to take the money to put some kind of special design up there, but I would recommend that you put the Village of Webster on the clock itself rather than on the face. Which is typical. If you look at the patterns on the last page, you'll see that most of the time it's on the clock as like a slight bump at the top or someplace else to note. It also kind of avoids the problem that we've gotten into over the last 20 years. So the timeline I would propose for this would be tonight being the proposal, and then we'd go out for quotes and try to get that done by the middle of next month if we possibly could. We could always bump these things forward, and then we would then September 28th meeting, you consider the resolution to expend the money from the Parks Fund, order the clock, and then the dedication would be next year. I'm trying to put in a lot of possible delays in there because things get delayed. That's the way it goes. And then Jake had sent me the process that Marcia had put together at one time about how to expend money from the Parks Fund. I put that on the second to last page. Tried to summarize that for you so you knew how that worked. Obviously, the expenditure from the Parks Fund is subject to a permissive referendum, so you have to wait 30 days after that. So there's already built-in delays in this process, so I don't think it's possible to rush it too much. And that's really about it. So I guess what I would ask you guys to do is maybe if you want to provide some email feedback to me or something like that, maybe you could, in the next week or so, I will clump all that together and then we can start. I'll work with Jake to have, because he said he'd be willing to do the quote part, and we will look at whatever elements you want or don't want in the existing clock. I think that's the most important thing, to make sure it's something you guys are supporting, support as far as the design goes. Well, we're gonna make it work. We're gonna make it work. Clearly, over the last 20 years, the mechanism to make a synchronous clock is actually improved. I mean, it looks like that's not even, that's so much not an issue that it's not even addressed on the websites or in the actual ordering of the clocks. So they don't even talk about synchronicity between the sides, because I think it's an assumption in 2023 that we have the technology to do that. So, but of course, we're gonna make sure it doesn't fail. Because, yeah.
Peter, do you know, they were national name?
I don't know what they're, I'd be happy to call them and ask them where they're.
I have that information.
Do you? Okay. Do you know what company they used?
I don't have it with me.
That's all right.
I could let you know what it is.
Would you?
But Jody and my wife talked to the builder of that clock.
Okay. Absolutely, you can look at that as a possibility.
I like this.
Yeah, these were all examples of clocks from all the different companies, so I didn't choose one company. I wanted to make sure you had one from each. There's one website where you look at it, they actually have a really kind of a neat way of doing it where you click on it and you can actually move the clock. So you can swivel the clock all around and look at it from the top, from the bottom, which actually helps look at other models as well. It gives you a sense of what the clock would look like from different perspectives. And that's the one at the bottom you see there. It's kind of it's not an actual photo, that's really more of an illustration. The three at the top are really photos of existing clocks out there. And you can see there's slightly different elements to them, so you can make decisions on how you'd like to see that.
Jake and I have already determined what we like.
Pick whatever they like, as long as it's the middle one on the top.
Yeah.
No, I don't like that one.
It's two-sided.
I like that the bottom.
Yes,
Well,
two-sided, that's what we want, two-sided.
I don't like
Daryl, I think, is more headed towards a four.
Yeah, that looks like it's two-sided.
Yeah.
We probably,
Have a chance of something going wrong with it.
I would think, I'd be more in favor of a four-sided clock as well, but.
Four.
It's green, or he's not.
I was trying to give you more design elements there, not concentrating on the faces. So I was making the assumption we'd probably go with the four-sided clock, because it does, Daryl's argument to me was actually pretty compelling, which is no matter what side, where you are, from the street, from the park, from north or south, you're gonna be able to see the time on a four-sided clock. So it makes sense.
You have a four-sided clock now, and you can.
Well, that's because it doesn't work.
Yes, you can. 4 different ones.
Yeah, four different times, pick your country, Jake.
So we're gonna have a beautiful clock with a park that's a mess.
I
The
think
park's a
that's
mess.
You're jumping to another,
Mess.
you're jumping to another topic.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll deal with that one. How about you and I talk about that?
Right now, Matt's in the process of doing a grant application to try to get money to fix up Veterans Park, so.
We'll try to crack that cookie.
Talk to Matt about that.
All right.
But we'll try to crack the cookie on the clock first, which has been waiting a long time, so.
Flowers look beautiful.
So Peter, one other question. So your quote of $25,000 to $30,000, is that just the clock itself and not the?
No, that'd be the
whole
entire apparatus,
place?
from the base where it screws in
That's
to the
everything?
top of the very top of the clock.
Gotcha.
I don't know, though, looking at that, how much, where the labor part of that comes in. So you asked me like what percentage is equipment versus labor, I'm not sure yet. We'd have to that's why we have to actually put in, I think, what we really want to do is get the board's kind of approval for going onto one of these websites or going on to, and then, going on and actually establishing a real quote and seeing, we could start looking at what labor looks like for this as well, which I think, is got to be a significant part of this money, so, just because it is and everything. So are you comfortable just kind of giving me feedback over the next week about what you want? And then I'll work with Jake in September and get this to you as fast as possible. Hopefully by the end of the month, we can have something engaged. Don can help write the resolution if you don't mind, Don, and see if we can move forward. Does that sound, if we can get it done in a month, if not, it'll be the first week in October, first meeting in October. But again, I'm very cognizant of the fact that when you start out to do something in government, it can slow down fairly quickly, so I always kind of factor that in. So it's a lot to do, a lot of T's to cross, and a lot of I's to dot.
Is it playing me cute music when it strikes?
No, come on.
That'll cost more.
Oh, God.
It's just something else to fail.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
well, this one at the bottom, it looks like a birdhouse.
He's
Right.
so cute.
Yeah.
It's got a
I
bird
did
coming out
like
of it.
it.
It doesn't look like, it looks like it's a
I
big
like
birdhouse.
the art. Cute. I don't like them at top hill, but
Okay, well, that's why I'd appreciate if you could give me feedback. I'll send out an email to the whole board again and ask them for their feedback based on the report that I gave you. And then if you'd like to do that, that'd be great, and then we can start working to get this done. Because we're still talking 6 months, so I'd like to get it moving if we could,
Okay.
if possible.
But if they pick one clock, it's like a sole source, right? So what would the RFPs be for?
Well, Marcia said we'd have to get.
Because the 4 companies you've got, they have unique clocks. They don't sell the same clock, right?
I don't think so. I didn't see a single design that's
So
exactly the
if
same.
if the board picks which one they like, you don't have to do RFPs, it's just take the resolution to spend the money, wait the 30 days and go buy it.
yeah.
And these are
It's
the
them
only
coming up,
designs.
you know,
No, there are
There's
literally,
really sold-
there's actually a dozen, there's probably a dozen more designs you can look at, which is why I'd like to see, if you could take a week and take a look, and then we could come to a conclusion,
But
that'd be great.
it's the sole source exception to,
And then by the time we get to the first meeting in September,
Yeah.
if you just told me at that meeting, we should probably do it publicly and say, you know, this is the design we want, then it would be nothing for Jake to, well, it would be something, but it would be less, it'll be a little bit of work to go out and actually start doing the getting this done, so. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? I'm sorry to volunteer you, but you're my last hope will be one, you know.
Peter,
Yes.
the first company on your report here, the Verdant Company,
Yes.
that's who made the clock in Canandaigua.
Okay, and they are a very, very reputable
yeah, those are
company.
nice looking clocks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, reputable could equal more expensive, but we'll see.
Are they shorter? I can't remember.
Well, the diagram that I gave you on this last page, which Jake sent to me, that clock is only got a 3-foot column. Clearly ours is a longer column, so it's gonna be this, I just wanted to give you this potential to, give you a sense of the dimensions by doing that, not to say would be the clock we've got. Yeah,
No,
so.
the ones that Canada, but I didn't know if they
Well, I
were.
don't know if they might be a little shorter. I think that so looking at the clocks on their websites, I would say that most communities have adopted a shorter column for their clocks. I do think that's more common. Ours is a little bit taller, which is, it's good though, I'm not saying anything wrong with what ours look like, but 7 feet does seem to be more on the top side of the height. Because you take the base plus the 7 feet, plus the clock itself, it gets to be rather high.
So why don't you say the September 14th, instead of deadline for quotes, that's deadline for this board to decide on which one they want. Otherwise,
Yeah.
Jake and Peter get to pick which clock it is.
Well, no, don't do that, but yeah.
Well,
How about that? How about- So 14th is the deadline for
I'm
design.
just trying to get past I know how government moves so slow.
Okay, that's fine.
And if you're waiting for 5 people to come to a consensus on a clock, you're gonna be looking at past Christmas.
Are you guys comfortable with that? Okay,
I'll cut straws, we'll bring that.
all right.
Well, let's just get the 5 in the same
Seriously.
place to do it.
That's what I said, and I recognize that these things can be slower. And I don't, that's fine, but that's just the way things work. But,
Is there like a website that we could send them to, that they could look at the different?
Well, he does. He's
Yes,
got
if you
them
look-
on
if you
there.
look-
Yeah, he's
I
got
put them right
them.
on there because I figured that would be one of the questions everybody would ask. Because there are literally
Okay.
dozens of designs, and I was surprised at how many different possible clock designs there are out there.
The one up the street at the bank, do you
Yeah.
know who that one?
Yeah,
That's the first
Carl just said it
one.
was the first one, it was the Virgin Company.
It is? the-
Yes, and they have a lot of design, that's a very nice website, I recommend going on there, taking a look, it's a very good website to look at designs.
So it sounds like most people want a 4-sided, right?
Yes.
Except Jake and I, okay.
Okay. The 2-sided one's just half as many, so. Okay, all right, so I'll sort of, maybe I can just, Heather, can we put on the agenda for September, for the first meeting in September, is that an issue?
Yeah.
Everybody? Okay. All right,
Good.
thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Okay.
Thanks, Peter.